Live from New York, this is the Harvey Hour. My name's Stephen Harvey. It's great to have you in today on a Tuesday. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. How are you doing today on this Tuesday?
Doing great. Looking forward to the show. Got some nice topics tonight.
We do. We got a lot to talk about. The good thing is, we're live again. That's all I care about right now.
Live.
We're once again live again. Technical difficulties for the past 10 or so days. Missed 3 straight shows. I apologize greatly for that, but we are back. So let's jump into our first topic. We're starting off with a pretty great one. Joe Burrow went on Pardon My Take and had a very, very interesting and bold statement when talking about is he forgotten because of his recent injuries, and this is what he had to say.
Do you think people have forgotten about Joe Burrow?
I believe that.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you get hurt, though. You don't play football, people forget about you.
Yeah. I like the spot you're in right now because I feel like
I love the spot I'm in.
yeah, like AFC, everyone's like, oh, well, you know, Josh, Lamar, and Patrick, CJ Stroud. It's like, you're forgetting one guy.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
But again, that's part of the game. If you're not out there and people aren't watching you, then there's nothing to talk about.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm going to give people to talk about, something to talk about this year. I'm excited about it.
So do you think that Joe Burrow will be able to bounce back after his several injuries, but his season-ending one last year?
Yes, I do. I think he'll. He said, when my season ended after 10 games, I got a head start on the preseason for next getting ready for next year. I spent my time in the weight room. I've got a leg up on everybody else because I had that extra time. So he's a all-pro quarterback. He's in the top 10 in my book, right near the top when he's healthy. That's been his challenge, though. He's been hurt. He had a knee injury. He had he had a back injury there, and a wrist injury. I mean, he's had some injuries. The Bengals need to get a better offensive line. They need to improve their offensive line. I mean, him getting sacked all over the place, particularly a couple of years ago when they went to the playoffs, he was getting sacked 8 to 10 times a game in those playoff games. That just can't be sustained. They got to find a way to protect him better, and he needs to find a way to stay healthy, particularly in the preseason, so he can get off to a better start. Last year, he got off to a terrible start because he wasn't 100%, and he didn't have the time in the preseason to really get himself sharp. And by the time he did start getting it going and the Bengals started winning, then he hurt his wrist and he was out the rest of the season. And he said standing on the sidelines killed him. He hates to stand there and watch the game. And he's right. People forget about the quarterback when he's not in there playing. That's the only time you're going to remember him, when you see him playing. So if you're standing on the sidelines and somebody else is out there winning games and doing a good job, you're going to forget about them. So he's a hard guy for me to forget about, the way he's played the last 4 years when he's been healthy. So I expect him to bounce back. If he can stay healthy, he'll have a great season. I think the Bengals will be a playoff contender for sure, and an opportunity to go deep into the playoffs.
Well, absolutely. And if you've been watching the show for about a year at this point now, you would remember when we did our MVP predictions for the 2023-24 season, that was my MVP pick. He was my MVP pick. I picked Joe Burrow because I expected him to keep growing, keep progressing. He went to a Super Bowl, lost it, sadly, because I picked him to win. Then had a little bit of a down year, but he's the one quarterback, and the Bengals are the one team to say no to Patrick Mahomes. He's 3-1 against Patrick Mahomes. It got actually bad for the Chiefs, good for the Bengals, that they wanted to rename Arrowhead Burrowhead. And then Mahomes obviously had an answer for that. But I think really, a lot of people are saying, well, can we call him injury prone? Has he been hurt enough? Well, in 2020, right, when his rookie season, he completely obliterated his leg. That one injury, that one play back against Washington in Week 11, he had a grade 3 ACL tear, a grade 3 MCL tear, grade 3 PCL tear, and a meniscus tear. All that one play that he was just completely obliterated for, those 4 injuries in one single play. Then the following year, December 5th, hand-finger dislocation. January 2nd, knee strain grade 1. February 13th, MCL sprain grade 2. July 27th to 2023, leg calf strain. Then we all remember November 16th of 2023, he had that weird hand-wrist ligament injury. I believe it was from Jadeveon Clowney against the Baltimore Ravens. But I think Joe Burrow will bounce back. Will I pick him as my MVP? I don't think I'm going to straight up say currently at this given moment, I will say, you know what, Joe Burrow, he's my MVP candidate. I did that last year, and it wasn't that great of a situation. My problem with Joe Burrow, just he doesn't get off the hot starts. That's my big worry when it comes to him. Same thing with Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence and him really never get off to incredibly hot starts throughout their careers. Like, for instance, in games 1 to 4, so the first month or so, he's 7-8-1 in his entire career, a losing record. Then it gets a little bit better. Games 5 to 8, he's 9-7. Then back to 500 in games 9 to 12, and then late in the season when it matters most, he is 7-1. So late in the season, I have no doubt Joe Burrow's in full rhythm, ready to make a deep playoff run. Just about getting there. We've seen in consecutive off seasons of Joe Burrow injuring himself in practice. That can't happen this year. He needs to sort of stay off the field in order for him to get back on the field. Because if he gets hurt again, I don't think this is that hot of a take. The Bengals, and they did pay him a bunch of money. The Bengals, at least, if they like Jake Browning, they can keep Jake Browning. But you might want to draft a solid backup just in case, because if Joe Burrow's out here getting injury after injury after injury, at some point, when are we going to be like, well, he's a slightly more stable and durable Andrew Luck, but still Andrew Luck. Banged up all the time, unavailable when it matters, starts off slow. Like, for instance, he probably should have sat at the beginning of last year because he clearly was not healthy.
I think that's a good point. I think maybe they should have let him sit the first couple of games. I mean, they got blown out in their first game last year. Could have had him on the bench and resting and getting that injury healed up so that he could be 100% out there. Instead, they let him play, and it was the first 3-4 games of the season. He was on one wheel.
Right.
So, that was a mistake. I think maybe they wouldn't do that again, but hopefully he won't get hurt in the preseason this time around.
That's what
you look at his career, 68% completion percentage, 14,100 yards, 97 touchdowns, 37 interceptions, a 98.6 QBR rating. That's pretty damn good.
Yeah.
That averages 3,500 yards a season, 24 touchdowns and 9 interceptions, and that's with seasons that he didn't play the whole year. So, the guy can clearly put up the numbers. The other thing he's got is he can make the big play in the clutch. He can do it. He's somebody that rises to the occasion, plays through adversity, a weak offensive line, getting sacked repeatedly. The guy's got the toughness. He's got the mental strength to perform as one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the league, for sure. And I think they will bounce back this year. I think that he's got the weapons around him. T. Higgins signed his franchise tag. Jamar Chase is there. He'll make those guys better. They really, neither of them had the kind of season that was expected of them because they didn't have Joe Burrow throwing them the ball. But I think that they'll be weapons. Those are weapons they'll have. They don't have Mixon next year. But who is that running back going to be? Did you know? Who did they pick up? Or
they have Zach Moss.
Zach Moss. Okay, so not too big a name there. But their defense, okay, not the greatest defense. You don't think any real big names on defense?
Well, Trey Hendrickson, but he wants out. He definitely is not happy being in Cincinnati right now.
Oh yeah.
My problem with, saying, what, Joe Burrow's going to be 100%. He's going to go out there, perform at the highest level. He's going to be in deep playoff contention. He's going to be, completely through and through healthy. He's going to be there the entire time. And you know what? They're going to make a deep playoff run. And hell, you know what? They're even going to be my Super Bowl. I'm not ready to say that because we've seen two healthy seasons, one where he got obliterated his rookie year, and then this past season where he played 10 games, although the first 4 games were not great at all. And then he ended up getting hurt. Week 11 against Baltimore?
10, I thought.
Week 10, 11 against Baltimore. A weird injury, too. No one really knew what happened. You got to slow it down. It looked like he banged his, hand off Clowney's helmet. Regardless, there's one thing that I could say, okay, that's at least a great thing for Burrow to progress through the season and take it maybe easier than he would have to. They have the 6th easiest schedule in the NFL. And what you start with is, let's be honest, a little bit of a toss-up. You start with the New England Patriots at home against the New England Patriots.
That's a win.
But then in week 2, you're right back in the flames of hell at Kansas City.
Yeah, well, they has good luck against Mahomes.
But then you have...
That will be his game to show that, hey, I'm going to give people something to talk about. That's the game right there.
That could be very
You win
well.
that game,
Yeah.
they'll be talking about you, that's for sure, in very positive light.
Well, the next 2 games, I think, no offense to Washington, because I do like Jaden Daniels, but the next 2 games, I think, are a catwalk. Versus Washington at Carolina. Those are 2 nice games. So most likely, and believe me, I'm sure if I feel more confident, we hear more things about Joe Burrow progressing and how good he looks in practice and whatnot, I may pick him in week 2 against the Chiefs to beat him. But most likely, most people are probably going to say 3-1 to start the year. I think that's fair to say. Then your versus Baltimore.
That would be much better than they have been starting. If
Yeah.
they could start 3-1, that would be a real feather in their cap, given the way they've started the past couple of years.
Absolutely. But then, you know what? You're back in kind of hell because you're versus Baltimore. And Joe Burrow hasn't been the best whatsoever against Baltimore. I think Baltimore and the Browns are 2 teams that he's not exactly the best in. So my guess is he'll struggle. And then you're at Giants.
Should win that one.
Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, how are they going to disrupt the offensive line? I mean, they're building just a solid unit of offensive linemen. I mean, it's insane to think about because they picked up Trent Brown. Now, we saw Trent Brown up close and personal for a number of years. I was very critical of him, not this past season, but the season before, and even this season at times.
He was
I've been
very
critical
good.
of
He
Trent
was
Brown.
very good the year he was the left tackle for Brady.
Right. Well, we're talking years
while
ago
ago.
at this point.
18.
The Orlando Brown Jr., both 2 6'8" tackles. They also drafted Amarius Mims, who I think we both had going to the Cowboys in our mock drafts. I believe I did. We have him somewhere in front of us. I believe he's also 6'7", 6'8" as well. So they have a backup in case Trent Brown or Orlando Brown Jr. get injured. Which it seems like when it comes to the Bengals, it's either their offensive line is banged up or just straight up not good. So because they have the 6th easiest schedule, I'm going to say that it's going to be a nice, decent start. Through the first month of the season, which may be a good indication of where the Bengals might be. Because their last couple games, you're up against decent defenses. I would say 3 out of the last 5 games you play, you're up against solid defenses. But let's say, so we got win against New England, they're 3-1 to start the year. Loss against Baltimore, win against the Giants, you're 4-2. At Cleveland, Deshaun Watson is the most inaccurate quarterback on 3rd down, and it's due to his pure inaccuracy. So I'm actually going to give the Bengals the win there. Versus Philly, that's also going to be a hell of a game. So through the first 8 games, I think you're probably going to be 5-3, which is like, okay, not the greatest start. But I think because it's Joe Burrow, we'll see some crazy plays in between there. I think because what we saw last year was, and this was part of my argument about Brock Purdy and how he does when he's trailing. By the way, the numbers still say he's not very good. Just look at last year, a couple of horrible interceptions. Joe Burrow played his best game, arguably, against the 49ers, where he was lighting up that defense. It was basically like the 49ers just had an average defense. He was picking them apart entirely. So when I take a look at what Burrow's going to do against these top defenses, I got to look at, first of all, who's healthy, both on the Bengals as well as the defense of who he's playing against. If everybody is healthy, and for instance, let's say arguably the hardest defense they're going to play, do you think Cleveland is going to be back to the number 1 overall defense in the NFL? I think they'll probably be top 3. I don't know if they'll be number 1. The Chiefs, are they going to be number 2? I have no idea.
They could be.
They brought back Chris Jones. They signed him to an extension. Yeah. Although they did lose, what's his name? L'Jarius Sneed. He's on the Titans now. But let's just say hypothetical situation. I think the hardest defense, if I were to predict at this current moment, obviously I don't know. And I'm sure there are a lot of people who say, oh, it's Baltimore. Oh, whatever. Let's just say it is Baltimore. They get Baltimore's games out basically the first half of the year. Week 10 is the last time they play Baltimore. So it's week 5 and 10. Then you're up to really weeks 11 to 18 playing against the hardest defense might be the Cowboys. Once again, depends on how you look at Cleveland's defense. So
Cleveland has a good defense.
Well, we'll see this year.
So the Cowboys and Cleveland, those are the two toughest defenses in the last part of the season.
Yes.
And they have the 6th easiest schedule. You'd think they're going to win, 11, 12 games.
Currently, their over-under is 10.5. I don't know if I would pick the over for them. I want to because I like Joe Burrow. I picked him for my MVP candidate last season. So if he can come out and absolutely light up the scene again, which we've seen he can do, and in some of the biggest moments as well, Chiefs AFC Championship game, I think there's a shot they can get to 11 wins, 12 wins. But because of his health, it's such a massive question mark that even if he is not that banged up to be out for the game, him playing injured is still a detriment to the team, which is everybody's argument of why he shouldn't be starting the first 3-4 games of the season.
Yeah.
So my major question mark is, how healthy will he be week 1, 14 minutes, 56 seconds in the first quarter when he's taking that first snap? If he is the Joe Burrow that we know, deep playoff run and a bounce back season is in order.
I think that's what's going to happen, because I don't think they'll let him play more than a few plays in the preseason.
He shouldn't.
They're going to let him get hurt again like he did last year.
Well, the problem is also practice. How hard is he going in practice? Because
they'll probably let him go hard in practice because they don't let anybody hit the quarterback.
Still, though, Joe Burrow finds a way to get hurt, and that's the scariest part about it. But I don't know, it's going to be fun to watch. I like Joe Burrow a lot. We'll make MVP predictions. We'll make postseason predictions when it gets closer to the season. But right now, if you were to say how far the Bengals would go, let's say Joe Burrow's healthy for all 17 games, how far do you think they can go?
I think they could get to the Super Bowl.
I would agree with
They're
you.
the one team I think can beat the Chiefs.
And they have 3-1.
Yeah.
So...
And the Chiefs are going to be the team to beat. The road to the Super Bowl is going to go through Kansas City for sure. And you're going to have to beat the Chiefs. Joe Burrow's proven he can do it. He's 3-1 against Mahomes. He's beaten him in the playoffs in the AFC Championship game. But Buffalo has not been able to do that. I don't see them being able to do that this year. So it's the Bengals or the Chiefs. That's how I see it.
I 1,000% agree with that, because Baltimore, another year under Monken's system, I think will benefit Lamar greatly. But I think, once again, how's Zay Flowers going to do? Your wide receiver core is still not great. How healthy is Bateman going to be? How healthy is Duvernay going to be? The health of the Ravens is basically like, okay, they will get hurt at some point, and that's really unfortunate, whether it's weapons, offensive line.
Yeah, they're going into this season without a true proven number one receiver again. That's happened to them almost every season. They did OBJ. He was, I think OBJ is kind of past his prime. Is Zay Flowers, though, really? Is he really going to be an elite receiver?
People won't say yes because of his age. And I just think it could be the system. It could be Lamar. It could be just Zay Flowers.
He had a nice season last year.
I think he had a great season for expectations.
For expectations. But was it a season that you would consider him, wow, he's one of the elite receivers in the NFL? I don't think so.
Well, no, he's not Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. No, he's not any of that.
That's a bona fide number one receiver would be someone with a name like that.
Fair. Let's get into our next topic here, because this is a pretty fascinating one. So, the Athletics' Fred Katz reported recently that Jalen Brunson is considering signing a 4-year, $157 million extension, which I believe is this Friday the Knicks could offer him. But this is the big one. Jalen Brunson will become eligible to sign a contract extension on Friday. However, he could earn a significant pay rise by waiting until next summer. The amount, about $112 million more, because if he waits until next summer, he could sign a 5-year, $269 million contract. Jalen Brunson, Mavs pushed him to the side. They didn't want him. The Knicks were like, we will take you. And then Jalen Brunson goes out and averages 28.7 points and 6.7 assists on basically 48% shooting this past season, and probably should have had a bigger argument to at least be more in the MVP conversation, in my opinion. But I want to know, do you think Brunson should actually wait until he signs his extension next offseason, or the Knicks may have to let him go? Do you think he should wait?
I read the articles about this, and I've studied it. I mean, he's 27 years old, so you got to think that he'd get another shot at a very big contract. There's a good opportunity for that. If he takes the 4 years, $156.5 million through, it takes him through 28, 29. That's 39. Averages $39.1 million a year. He's got security, right? He could, if he waits a year, he makes $26 million this year. That's his contract, average contract value. So he signed a 4-year, $104 million contract before. So $26 million is not chump change.
No,
that's
well, I
for
mean,
sure.
You're in New York.
Yeah, right.
Tax is not great for you.
In New York, the taxes are high. I don't know if he lives outside the city taxes, you add that on, the state tax, the federal tax, man. You're paying a lot of tax living in New York. But he can also get lots of endorsements in New York, more than he could get elsewhere. If he waits for the next year, plays on $26 million this year, which is not chicken feed, and signs a 4-year, $269 million contract through 29-30, that would average $53.8 million a year. It's an extra $113 million a year. That looks really good.
Yeah.
Or he could sign this extension, $156 million, and then get a player option through in year 28 and 2028, which would allow him to become a free agent. And then he will be in the range now where he have enough longevity as a player to be eligible to sign for 35% of the salary cap in that year, which they're estimating could be a contract of $418 million. Okay, that looks pretty good.
That looks great.
That looks great. And, he would make up the amount of money he would make from 25 to 30 under the 4-year contract. If he waits till next year, is $269 million. He'd make that all up and then some. His last year of the $417 million, he'd be making $95 million a year to play basketball. So I think you have to look at that. He'd be 30 years old when he had that player option. I think he would have had a contract, almost made $157 million on top of a contract of $104 million before that. Still young enough to command that Supermax contract, $417 million. I think it's a kind of a hard decision. I think it is a difficult decision. I don't think he has any interest in playing anywhere else. He has deep ties to Leon Rose, the president of basketball operations for the Knicks. He likes Tom Thibodeau. His father is an assistant coach for the Knicks. The Knicks are winning. That's great. He's surrounded himself now with the Knicks have surrounded him with his college buddies. They just picked up Mikal Bridges. They have DiVincenzo and Josh Hart as well. So almost the whole starting five is going to be Villanova players, which is really interesting. I'm not sure that's ever happened before. He was 5th in the MVP voting last year.
Should have been higher, but
yeah.
I'm not going to be.
First All-NBA team. That was a nice accolade for him. One of the league's biggest names playing in Madison Square Garden, the mecca of basketball. Can't do much better than that. But that security out there for that the extension, $157 million. Sometimes the small point guards often get injured. And that could happen to him. He had an injury at the end of the very last game of the playoffs there, the 7th game in the second round. He broke his hand. He understands that the team that has too high a payroll may lose its resources, and the Knicks could be, not as competitive because they paid so much for their salaries that the penalties and the way the CBA works could wind up having them lose some of their resources. And you got to remember that Randall he's going to be having a contract coming up next year. Whether they want to keep him or not remains to be seen. Bridges is a free agent in 26. They're going to need a center or re-up with Robinson. A couple of years, Embiid might be out there. They might be able to get him.
Now with Paul George there for the next few years.
Anunoby just got a 5-year, $212 million contract, which I think makes it tough for Jalen Brunson to take that extension. I think when you look at that, I think it's almost an insult that he would get the 156 when Anunoby is getting over $200 million on a 5-year deal. So my gut tells me he's not going to take the extension.
So
he's going to play the $26 million.
You think he's going to go for the 269?
It's going to. I think he
5-year 269.
5-year 269, $53 million. You know what? Even if he got hurt this year, he'll still get that deal. I think he'd still get that deal, even if he got hurt. I mean, it couldn't be a really, a career-ending injury, of course.
Well, yeah,
but that's unlikely for a guy who's 27 years old. So I think he's going to lean to that bigger contract, and he may be able to structure it in a way that he'd still have that shot at the Supermax down the road somewhere. Or maybe they
we
compromise.
just saw Paul George at 34, 35. He's getting a $200+ million deal.
I know.
So yeah, you're right. He could.
He's 34 years old.
Yeah.
So, but point guard a little bit different when you get a little older. I think. Paul George is a forward, so
that's fair.
He's not going to have to be running around kind of the way that Brunson does. And Brunson's game is one where, he's. And he's like a football player to get inside to get those easy shots. So I think it's a really hard decision. I'm not 100% sure, but my thought is he's going to hang out one more year for the bigger money. And with the idea that even if he got hurt this year, he'd still probably get that max contract.
I think New York would want him to get.
Yeah.
New York wants him to stay. I don't think they really care about the dollar price unless it's something absurd.
They get the money too. They have the money. The penalties aren't going to hurt them that bad. The Madison Square Garden is the mecca of basketball.
Right.
They pack if they have losing seasons, they still pack it. The place is sold out all the time. The tickets are astronomically expensive. The television money is huge. The players all have they have endorsement contracts around New York. They make tons of money. So. Even if he took that's one thing on his mind probably. If he took the 156, he's probably thinking, you know what, the city's going to feel sorry for me. I'll get all kinds of endorsements.
I don't believe that, but I will say that has Jalen Brunson deserved to get the 5 years, 269? Yes, he has played that well during his duration for the Knicks and the growth that he's had since he's been with the Knicks and kind of, I think, getting disrespected by Dallas, I'm sure, although they have Klay Thompson. Who would they rather want at this moment? Kyrie Irving, Luka, and Brunson, or Kyrie, Luka, and Klay Thompson? I'm not entirely sure. But has he earned the right to get that 5 year, 269? 100%. The problem with him getting that amount and him trying to push for that amount, and believe me, everybody should get every penny that they possibly can from any sort of job. If you're making large boats of money or have the opportunity to make a large sum of money, go for it. Because in this economy, you kind of need as much money as you possibly can. Loaf of bread, $15. It sucks. Not actually. But I think Jalen Brunson is going to play this incredibly smart just like he does on the basketball court. Because the first problem, if he does decide to wait, is the media, and we already know, everybody knows, New York media scrutinizes people like really no other media, sports media city does. New York heavily criticizes everybody, including us. Aaron Rodgers goes on a vacation to apparently Egypt, and for literally a month and a half, a lot of sports shows were literally headlining, where's Aaron Rodgers? Aaron Rodgers misses this day. For months. For a month and a half, for several weeks, that was a storyline. So I think if Jalen Brunson decides to not sign this extension for the entirety of the season, if Jalen Brunson has one bad game, it's like, oh, is he happy? Is he trying to force his way out of New York? If he has a great game, pressure on Tom Thibodeau in the front office. Are you going to sign him? Is this what you're going to do? It's a constant rinse and repeat. We already saw it in action this past season with Klay Thompson. After the 2022 season, Klay Thompson asked for an extension. The Warriors would not give it to him. Then all we heard this season was, Klay Thompson, he's benched. He's disruptive. We heard a report recently about how Klay Thompson was just as bad as Draymond Green, except he wasn't knocking people out, stomping on people, punching people, putting people in chokeholds, but he was disgruntled. He was moody. He was all upset. Are we going to see the same thing from Jalen Brunson? At least from the media perspective, where it's constant questioning, constant scrutiny. The second part about it is how the NBA is now structured. Because the NBA does not want these super teams going around, they impose these first apron and second aprons. Well, the second apron is not that great if you're a team trying to win, if you're a team still trying to build, which the Knicks kind of need because they just lost, in my opinion, their best center. I think Hartenstein's better than Mitchell Robinson. So if you lost him, and by the way, he's making like $29 million to most likely be on the bench, but I think he's good enough to come off the bench if one of them gets hurt, regardless. If the Knicks go over that second apron, which, by the way, LeBron narrowly navigated by taking a few $1 million less for the Lakers because they were that close, and look at them. They did a bunch of bad player option deals and just bad deals, player options, other contracts just on bad players, and they are not winning basketball games. The Knicks are winning basketball games. Why would you want to disrupt that? In my opinion, play it like the NFL. Take the hometown discount. Now actually a player that I think will not take a hometown discount is Julius Randle because he's going to be eligible for an extension, I believe, next year. And I know I have a funny feeling that I think Jalen Brunson will sign this 157. I think he will sign it. I don't think so. Because
he's not going to take it. I don't think so. Nobody has ever done that. No one has ever taken a lot smaller money. It's never happened yet. This would be the first time. I don't think he'll do it.
If you can keep that core together, and by the way, you say Bridges is a free agent after 26.
Yeah.
Well, so is Julius Randle. So if you say, I'll take 157, you could re-sign Mikal Bridges a couple years from now. So you could keep that core of Villanova together for as long as you possibly can, for as long as it at least makes sense to keep them together.
Why should Jalen Brunson sacrifice for that? Why should he be the one to sacrifice for that? They gave Anunoby $212 million.
Who's going to sacrifice? Yeah. If it's not going to be Jalen Brunson, who's it going to be?
How about Julius Randle? Why wouldn't he sacrifice?
No, what I mean is Julius Randle's probably going to be out of there. Yeah. He's not going to want to sacrifice.
So, I mean, they won't go over the apron if Jalen Brunson sticks with his existing contract.
You can when you need to sign Julius Randle. If you want him back, you will if you want to sign Mikal Bridges back. It's not about right now because right now that team is basically constructed as is. That is basically a finished product with OG, with Hart, with DiVincenzo, Brunson,
I think they're light
Bridges.
At center. I think that's a problem for them.
I saw something recently how they're banking on Jericho Sims to step it up. He's 25 years old. They want him to step it up and be their next big man.
You know what? They let him play a couple of years ago for a while, and he looked like
he averaged 2 points this season, I believe.
And then this year they didn't let him do anything. So I don't think Jericho Sims is the answer at center for them.
But making the move, and by the way, a lot of people agree that Mikal Bridges was the best move in the offseason. Period. The trade to get Mikal Bridges away from Brooklyn was arguably the best move because
the best move for any team.
For any teams, that's what a CBS sports writer Brad Bott can believe.
He doesn't think he thinks that's better than Paul George to the 76ers.
We talked about this before. I think Paul George is going to familiar territory. Who's hurt in the worst moments?
I think it was a great trade for the Knicks because it did put those 4 guys together who played together in college.
Well, not only that, they each complement each other great because Mikal Bridges is a 20-point-a-night scorer, which puts a load off of Jalen Brunson having to score 40 and then winning by like 2 points. Yeah. And not only that, he's also a great defender as well. That also leaves you depth, really good depth on the bench. That means DiVincenzo is probably no longer in the starting lineup, which means that Miles McBride is not your option A as a point guard or as a guard. You now can leave it to DiVincenzo. And that also means you move Hart from the starting lineup. OG's in there, Bridges, Brunson, that trio right there. Is great defensively, and then with Bridges and Brunson, and even Julius Randle, if you want to add the forward in, offensively, they're also incredibly good.
Well, we'll find out about this on Friday. Right? Whether he takes it or not. My prediction is he won't take it. and we'll be on the show talking about it. Although if he takes it Friday night at 11:30 in the evening, then we won't
Probably
we won't know.
Yeah, we won't know.
But my feeling is you'll find out about it before the show on Friday, and we'll be able to know whether he took it. You're saying he's going to take the extension.
I think he should.
You think he should, but will he? Is he going to? You have to say one way or the other. Is he going to take it? I said I'm telling you, he's taking it, the new contract in 2025, a max contract, $269 for 4 years, $53.8 million a year. That's the one he's going to pick.
I think because the Knicks did a service to him that benefits the Knicks as well as benefits the morale of the team, getting that quad together. I think really re-signing OG, bringing in Bridges, having Hart.
Losing Hartenstein.
Losing Hartenstein, which sucks, but and even throw Julius Randle in that. That's starting five right there. I think he does it. I think he does. I think he does sign for the 157. Oh yeah, it was 157.
We'll know on
157.
Friday.
Because they're doing a service to them, to the Knicks themselves, because they're getting a great player. But they're also saying, you know what, Brunson? We'll give you another Nova. We'll give you another Nova Wildcat. So then you feel more at home.
Is there anybody left out there that they could get?
Is
there a good center? Is there a great center? That's too bad.
What, Tristan Thompson?
Was he a Villanova?
David Tice, I believe, is still out there.
Tristan Thompson is over the hill. I'm sorry.
I agree with you.
He's a role player now, bench player.
Well, then you drafted a couple 6'8", 7-foot guys. You got Sims, who I saw today. They really, really like. So
yeah. Well, what else can they say? They can't go get anybody else now. They have to say
they let Alec Burks walk. They let. I mean, Hartenstein. By the way, they could have only paid what 12 on average or total
17
contract.
million, I thought.
Yeah, total contract. They would be spending $12 million less as their max. Any team could have spent whatever they want on him. I believe Thunder gave him what 89 million total, 29 per year, and meanwhile the Knicks could only give him 72.5. He went for the money.
Yeah.
He went for the money, which is fine. Get every penny you possibly can.
I was surprised. I thought they'd find a way to keep him, but they couldn't do it.
I don't think Mikal Bridges with that, or the idea of Mikal Bridges was that enticing. You could have traded Mitchell Robinson and made more cap space, but I digress. All right, coming up, Matt Judon. The Patriots might be in trouble. He's been posting cryptic tweets about his future with the New England Patriots, as well as what quarterback or quarterbacks are going to be the next dark horse for potentially winning the MVP. We'll talk about that right after this.
Whether you're just discovering your voice or taking your show to the next level, you know what the world needs to hear. All you have to do is say it. With Spotify, set up your podcast. Your food podcast. Your mindfulness podcast. Your never thought you'd get this far podcast. And watch those sparks fly.
I put a picture of the comment.
Drop the episode anywhere people listen. And find out who they're cooking with. Where they're finding inner balance. And why they love your show. You're already a creator. Now you can create, connect, and get paid for your passion with one single free tool. Spotify for podcasters. Talk where the world listens.
Traveling can be a nightmare. Why? You can't watch your favorite shows abroad. You can't trust public Wi-Fi spots anymore. And when you return, roaming bills kill your vibe. Unless you get a NordVPN and Saley deal. NordVPN will increase your privacy online. And Saley, a global eSIM data app, will save you from those unexpected roaming charges. Grab the 2-year NordVPN deal with 76% off and get up to 20 gigabytes Saley eSIM data gift.
Welcome back to the Harvey Hour. My name's Stephen Harvey. It is great to have you here today on a Tuesday. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. Let's get into our next topic of tonight's show. So, the New England Patriots have signed several of their key players to contract extensions in this offseason, including Ramondre Stevenson, Christian Barmore, as well as Jelani Tavai. But star edge rusher Matthew Judon, who's in the last year of his contract, has not been given an extension, and it doesn't look like anyone is coming anytime soon. A fan tagged Judon in a tweet last Wednesday, pleading with the Patriots to pay the man what he wants, to which Judon responded with, "I don't think that's going to happen," and then a couple hours later, this is basically what took place. I'm a head out, which then sent the Patriots fans into a frenzy on Twitter or X or whatever you call it. So it looks like Matthew Judon is either not going to get an extension or is not that happy with the New England Patriots and their whole contract ordeal with negotiating with him. I would like to know, though, do you think the Patriots should give the contract extension that a lot of fans, and we'll see if you think so as well, do you think he deserves a contract extension?
I think he deserves it. I'm not sure they'll give it to him. Their defense played quite well without him, and once they got it reorganized there a little bit, they hurt a little bit the first couple of games he was out, but then their defense was great the last half of the season. Really very, very strong without him in there. Without Gonzalez in there, too. Their other big player who's going to be back. They signed Barmore. Barmore had a great season last year. They have Keon White, who it will be in his second season. So I think they probably think they could get along without him. He has 1 year left on his contract. It's only $7.5 million. I mean, his mistake was he didn't sign for a big enough contract. He had a 4-year, $54 million contract. That's like 14th in edge rusher average annual salary. I think you've got these stats, and you're probably going to show them here. There's some huge contracts out there for edge rushers. Look at Nick Bosa. 5 years, $170 million. Now, Matthew Judon is not another Nick Bosa, but he's as good as many of these guys on this list, and he's last on the list. And he's only going to make $7.5 million this year. He's a 2-time Pro Bowler, and he had 15.5 sacks the year before last, 60 tackles, made his second Pro Bowl. I think the Pats want him back, but there's no deal yet, and probably be a while before we know whether there's going to be one or not. And whether he risks holding out or not, I don't know. He did say, I feel very blessed at this place in my career. I'm not going to take it for granted. He said he could be on the street, not making any money. And instead, he's made all this money playing NFL football, which is enough for, the rest of his life for sure. Even with a $54.5 million contract for 4 years, that's still a lot of money in his bank account. So do I think I'd love to see him get the extension. I love the Patriots, and I like him. I think he was a big difference maker. Now, whether he'll have the kind of success in the scheme of the new defensive coordinator as opposed to Belichick and company remains to be seen. Maybe not. But they did have a great scheme for him before. He shined when he was healthy. He was fantastic. He's 32 years old, maybe getting on the little high side there for edge rusher. But I think he deserves an extension. Will the Pats give it to him? I'm not so sure.
Well, I 100% think he deserves an extension because what he's done with the New England Patriots since he's been there, since coming from the Baltimore Ravens, the growth has been insane, and even, you would argue, maybe a defender doesn't have the lifespan of a quarterback, nowhere near the lifespan of a quarterback. They kind of, I think in most cases, have the lifespan of a very good running back. By low mid-30s, the chance of you getting another contract are basically zero. But when it comes to Judon, right? He never, ever eclipsed single digits in sacks with the Baltimore Ravens. The highest he had came in 2019 when he had 9.5. Since coming to the Patriots, year 1, 12.5. Year 2, 15.5. Year 3, he got hurt in year 3 this past season, but in 4 games, he had 4 sacks. So let's just say, we'll do averages here. He got 17 sacks, just for the sake of averages. But you know what? He did get 4 sacks, so let's keep it actual, why don't we? But I did show the graphic earlier, and I'll bring it up again. These are the edge rushers, and this is based on Spot Track defining what an edge rusher is. I know there's some defensive ends in here, but mainly this is outside linebackers, although a decent amount of defensive ends are mixed in there. These are great contracts, large contracts. Josh Allen just got paid. And so I crunched some numbers, right? I love statistics, as a lot of you out there have pointed it out. So let's do sacks. Why don't we? Sacks is a very crucial stat. It makes the offense lose a bunch of yards, kill more clock depending on untimely situations, and really disrupts any momentum an offense could have. Well, Matt Judon, since he arrived at the Patriots, has had 32 sacks. Would you believe only 5 other players have more sacks than Matt Judon? Max Crosby, 5. So it's Max Crosby, TJ Watt, Myles Garrett, Josh Allen has the same, so maybe 4, and then Nick Bosa has 2 more sacks and is making, what, $120 total million more? That's insane. Absolutely insane. Harold Landry, let's bring up the list again. Harold Landry, 9.5 fewer. Jonathan Grenard, 10 fewer. Leonard Williams, 17.5 fewer. Von Miller, 14.5 fewer. Now, some of these guys obviously were banged up and hurt. Bradley Chubb, 13 fewer. Rashawn Gary, 7.5 fewer. Brian Burns is probably the closest at 2.5 fewer. But Matt Judon's production since he came to the Patriots has been incredible. 32 sacks in really 2 years. 2 1/3 years. About, give or take. 4th years. So, I think Matt Judon 100% deserves to get a big contract. Now, it really depends on what the contract is. Because if he's asking for Nick Bosa money, he's probably not going to get it. And it's very difficult for the Patriots to give him a massive deal strictly because of his age. He's going to turn 32 in like 40 days from now, give or take a few. So if you're going to give a guy who's coming off of a bad injury, cost him the season, if I'm not mistaken, it was a torn bicep. He only played 4 games. You're going to give him, let's just say for the sake of the argument, I'm not sure if he gave a number out, but let's say a 4-year contract, he'll be 35. If you're going to give him $170 million, I don't think truthfully, he's not worth that kind of money. But do I think he could be worth, let's just say, $22 million a year for the amount of production he's had? 100%.
And how many years?
You'd probably give him 4 years.
4 years?
Yes, 4 years.
I don't think the Patriots are going to do that.
Well, and actually someone agrees with you because
that's almost $70 million.
Alex Ballantyne of Bleach Report says, quote, "This is going to be a multi-year rebuild even if Gerard Mayo and his staff are the right guys for the job. So the likelihood of Matthew Judon, who's going to be 32 when the season starts, will be part of the rebuild is unlikely." So he thinks actually the Patriots should put him up for a trade and get as much value as you can right now for him. Instead of having to deal with the contract and letting him go and then eventually getting nothing for him.
That might be the wise move, but the Patriots fans won't like that.
So, how about you?
I wouldn't like it. I enjoy watching him play. He's an exciting player to watch. He's very productive. He's creative out there. He's got the athleticism and the strength and to get the sacks and in the scheme the Patriots put out there for him. He as you say, he had the most sacks in the last several years there. Of any of these players, some of these guys.
Not the most, but
I thought
very few players have more sacks than since he came to the Patriots.
Over the period of time. He only played 4 games last year.
Right.
He had a sack in every game.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm not. But what I'm saying is, in his 3 years with the Patriots, he has 32 sacks.
Yeah.
There are 4 players that have more than him, and 1 player, Josh Allen of the Jaguars, is tied with him.
Okay, and look at the money.
The others, though, the other 10,
his 4-year deal,
$9,
$54 million. Leonard Williams got $64 million for 3 years.
He has 17.5 fewer sacks.
Yeah. Some of these guys, I mean, Chubb, 5 years, $110 million. TJ Watt, 4 years, $112 million. Von Miller, I'm sure Buffalo would love to take that deal back. 6 years, $120 million. He did nothing last year. Nothing. He was in the playoffs. He started to shine a little bit, but he really didn't do much at all. I'm sure they're very disappointed in him. He had some off-field problems. And he's still got a long way to go on that contract, and it's $120 million.
Yeah.
So I think Matthew Judon is worth more than what they're saying, but in the Patriots situation, as you just pointed out, the rebuild and all of that, and he's 32, maybe they will trade him. We'll see.
The logic behind it is the Jets traded for Hassan Reddick. The Eagles got Hassan Reddick or traded him away for a conditional 3rd-round pick to send him to the New York Jets. If the Patriots, if they do decide to get rid of him, could save $6.7 million in cap space, as well as if they trade him for, I guess, draft picks would be the most likely outcome of a Judon trade. You get more draft capital. Mm-hmm. The main problem with that is you don't need the cap space. I believe you're number 1 next year anyway.
Okay, well,
the great players, the really good players, and the main hole is receiver for the Patriots. All the great receivers are signed for the next 3-4 seasons anyway.
Yeah. Well, I think that the other thing that could dictate a trade is the defense played well without him. And they had the Keon White, a second-year player now, stepped up, and he played better as the year went on. And the defensive line actually was better last year for the Patriots. And you have Tavai, who really stepped up. I mean, they gave him the extension.
Right.
And you have Juwan Bentley, who was not a bad linebacker back there too. So, and the secondary is strong, right? Yeah.
Well, another
Julius
thing.
Peppers, he had a very good year last year. He'll be back.
The value of
Was it
Peppers,
Julius?
yeah, you're right.
Peppers.
Jabril Peppers.
Jabril Peppers, right?
The value of Judon on the Patriots, though, like I said, he has 32 sacks. The next highest Patriot has 17.
Yeah.
And that's Josh Uche. And he is like several spots down from number 14 on the contract list. But sacks-wise, he's very far down. So if it's that large of a gap, it's either you need to coach up defense and get to the quarterback much more, or you have to give, Judon a decent extension. Mm-hmm. Keon White, you could maybe say, is, the ringer to replace Matthew Judon. But the production level of it, this would be his third year in the league? Second year in the league, you're right. He's not there. Barmore, nice extension, got paid. Godshaw, he hasn't produced the level that you would expect. Belichick liked him, it wasn't able to produce. So the fact that it's that far of a distance, and not only that, screw sacks. How about just disrupting the quarterback and maybe bothering a little bit with QB hits? So Matt Judon, since 2021, where he came to the Patriots, has 62. There's, again, same list of people. Let's bring it up again. Same list of people with more money than him. We're seeing several of these guys, Williams, Highsmith, Grenard, Landry, Chubb, Von Miller, Brian Burns, all have fewer quarterback hits than Judon. Now, the one real outlier, I guess there's two technically, but the one massive outlier is Nick Bosa at 115. Judon has 62. 115 to 62. That's where a large part of the money comes in. Also just disrupting running lanes, pressuring the quarterback, not necessarily getting
There's a lot of other stats.
Right.
There's a lot of other stats.
There's some stuff that doesn't exactly get put on a stat sheet. And that's why Nick Bosa is so dominant. Matt Judon, and you've said this before on the show, back half of the season, where the hell is Judon? Where is he? He disappears sometimes in the big-time games where you double-team him. He can't get loose. He can't break free from the offensive line.
That should be an opportunity for the other players to step up, and so they have to make another adjustment that lets Judon have a chance there. And that's something that didn't happen. So,
yeah, no, 100% agree with you. All right, let's conclude with this last topic of today's show. So it's time. We like to do lists. We like to do predictions. That's something that we here at the Harvey Hour love to do, and we do it a lot. Top 10 quarterback list, a bunch of predictions. So let's do the quarterbacks that we think are going to have the biggest boom year going from 2023 now into 2024. We'll do this back and forth. So let's begin. Give me your first quarterback that will sort of shock the world from their 2023, have a big boom year into 2024.
Okay. So I'm calling it a quarterback bounce. And it has to, my criteria was you have to have started at least 13 games in 2023, and you have to be the anticipated starter in 2024. Okay?
So Drake May can't be on this list.
No, he can't be on this list, and Joe Burrow can't be on the list. He played 10 games last year, right?
Okay.
So my biggest bounce, quarterback who played 13 games last year, was sacked an amazing he played 16 games last year. He was sacked 62 times.
I know who you're talking about, yep.
And threw for 2,800 yards, had a quarterback rating of 33.4. Bryce Young.
Yep.
I'm saying Bryce Young is going to have the biggest bounce, and I'm saying
the biggest out of everybody.
The biggest out of everybody. The biggest bounce.
Oh my God.
No, the bounce off of his stats.
Right.
You think that Patrick Mahomes is going to have a bigger
No,
big
no,
bounce
no.
off
Mahomes can't have a bounce. He just won a
rating
Super Bowl.
of 63.1. I don't think so.
No. Well, he won a Super Bowl. But no, continue.
but I'm
continue.
talking about
Still,
stats bounce.
continue,
Do you think Dak Prescott is going to have a big bounce off his QB rating of 72.7? I don't think so. Look at Bryce Young. He's got the bar set about as low as it could be, right? 33.4. 62 sacks.
Yeah.
He had 11 touchdown passes and 10 interceptions. Okay? His longest pass was 48 yards. His average passing yards per game was 180. 5.5 yards per attempt for completion. 2,877 yards. His completion percentage under 60%. Now, the one reason I'm picking him, not just because the stats are really low and they don't have to bounce too hard to have the biggest bounce of anybody, is their offensive line. And, the Pro Football Focus says the Panthers' offensive line will be ranked a lot higher than last year at 20th. They signed Darian Lewis and Robert Hunt to play guard, and they have Taylor Molan at right tackle. He's an underrated player. Austin Corbett, if he can stay healthy, he's moving to center. And Ikin Ekwano, if he can live up to his top 10 pick status last year, I think they'll be able to protect Bryce Young. He won't get taxed 62 times. He was a Heisman Trophy winner. He proved in Alabama that he can really play. And, he's ranked 35th out of 38 by Pro Football Focus. So the bar is set very low. Their schedule, not the easiest, right? They got the Chargers, the Bengals, the Falcons, the Broncos, the Giants, the Bucs, the Cowboys, the Bucs, the Saints, the Raiders, the Bears, the Commanders, the Saints, the Chiefs, the Eagles, the Cardinals, and the Falcons. So it's not the easiest schedule. But I do think if the offensive line's a little better, you're going to see Bryce Young be the number one bounce quarterback compared to 23 stats in the NFL next year. That's my prediction, number one. Okay, what do you got?
Well, I'll go. I'm doing it slightly different. You're starting from the top down. I'm going from the bottom up. And my criteria is not bounce from 2,500 yards to, let's say, 4,000 yards. Because then I haven't looked at your list. I don't know your list. Daniel Jones might be on your list if we're going based on stats. Although he didn't start 13 games. He didn't start 13 games. I'll give it to you. Right. He didn't start 13 games. So for me, my first pick is a guy that we both liked a lot. Will Levis.
This isn't your first pick, though.
This is the bottom.
Yeah, but he didn't start 13 games.
I'm not going based on your criteria.
All right.
I'm just going with who will have the biggest growth from 23 to 24. It could be performance. It could be IQ. It could be stat-wise. I'm doing everything. I'm doing whole picture here. So for me, it is Will Levis because, yes, he came in, played 9 games. He wouldn't start over Ryan Tannehill, which I think is perfectly fine because we have to remember, I think back in I forget the year, it might be 2019, Ryan Tannehill had the highest passer rating, I think, in NFL history for an entire season, which is very, very impressive because it's Ryan Tannehill and it was playing for the Titans. No disrespect, but the Titans have not exactly been a historically phenomenal team, especially in the 2000s. But Will Levis, for me, is my first boom quarterback, if you want to call it. The offensive line is continually improving year after year after year. You got Skoronski last season. You're improving it this year. You got Cushenberry III, Sadiq Charles, as well as J.C. Latham. The Latham pick, I don't love. Now, I understand the Chargers kind of screwed you over by drafting Joe Alt, but there were a lot better, in my opinion, offensive tackles to get than Latham. But we'll wait and see how he performs. You got Calvin Ridley, massive signing. Tyler Boyd, pretty good signing. The one that I don't exactly love is Tony Pollard, but if you lose Derrick Henry, you kind of need a new running back. I don't think Tony Pollard's going to give you the same production that Derrick Henry is in 40,000 years. No offense to Pollard, but they're not exactly on even the same playing field as each other. Tony Pollard last season had 1 game of 100-plus yards. That's not that great. And we saw Will Levis. He loves his play action. Loves it. He actually had 4 touchdown passes to 1 interception. He performed okay for a rookie quarterback in play action. It wasn't the highest, but some of the stats were nice. I think he was 5th or 4th in big-time throws, a little bit on the turn. He had a lot of turnover-worthy plays. Not only that, let's go back to the receiver portion of it. So you got Tyler Boyd, Calvin Ridley. You already got D-Hop, which is also nice pickup, not bad at all. Aging receiver, but still very, very good. Tight end Okwonu, I'm sure I pronounced that wrong. Okonkwo, that's how you pronounce it, my fault. So there are a couple nice pieces offensively. Offensive line is the question mark that they've had because they were last in pass block efficiency rating last season. Not the greatest stat that you don't want to be associated with being dead last in that. You got a brand new head coach, which is more offensive than Mike Vrabel. Defensive coach, working with a brand new quarterback, not exactly set up for the right amount of success. You bring in Brian Callahan, who albeit did not call plays when he was with the Cincinnati Bengals, but knows and seen and looked at and, worked with Joe Burrow. So can he rub some of that skill set, the mindset, the work ethic, how you can observe the field, your IQ, how you sort of survey who's open, read defenses? Can he sort of project that onto Will Levis? I'm sure he can. Absolutely. And we already saw Will Levis have a couple of very, very nice performances against the Falcons and the Jaguars and the shocker against the Miami Dolphins. So he has a couple of these nice things. He's definitely not a mobile quarterback, Jalen Hurts, even Daniel Jones. But he has functional mobility, I would call it. But he's a pocket passer, which is kind of going out of style in today's NFL. But you upgrade the offensive line. You upgraded the receiver core. Running back definitely decreased. I think defense is also going to be a key question mark here. But offensively, for his individual performance, getting him Calvin Ridley, along with D-Hop, along with Tyler Boyd. Hey, Will Levis, I'm going for a decent season. I'm not saying winning record, but you go from, I think, honestly, call this a hot take if you will. 8-9. 8-9 for Will Levis. I think that is definitely a boom if Will Levis goes 8-9.
Okay. My second.
Your second, what do you call it again?
Bounce.
Bounce, that's
quarterback
what it was.
bounce.
Quarterback bounce. Number 2.
My number 2 is I think personally Russell Wilson is washed up.
Thank you.
Okay. I think that he's going to be the starter, I think, but I think he won't be in there for more than 3 games.
Wait.
I don't think he will be in there for more than 3 games. So
that
my
means
second bounce quarterback is Justin Fields.
Oh, God.
Justin Fields had a 44 quarterback rating last year.
He was bad.
Yeah, he was not good. 197 yards per game. He had 16 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. He had 2,562 yards. He is running. He can run the ball, and that stat is not listed here. But that is something that he brings to the table as well. His completion percentage, 61%, 227 of 370 passes. I think the guy is a very, very athletic. I think he will be in the Steelers offensive scheme with what's the guy? Who's the offensive coordinator who came from the Falcons? Who was
Arthur Smith.
Arthur Smith. I think that Arthur Smith is a run-first oriented OC, and they'll have kind of an offense with Justin Fields in there that would be like kind of a Lamar Jackson type offense with Justin Fields throwing the ball a little bit more than Lamar did in the early years. So I like Justin Fields to be my number 2 big bounce.
For me, and this is going to be probably the biggest
his
question.
quarterback rating was 46.1. He was sacked 44 times. The Steelers have a much better offensive line. They have better running backs, so the play-action pass is going to work better for them. They have good wide receivers.
Yeah.
And so I think that Fields won't beat out Russell Wilson the first couple of games. I think Russell will start, but I think he'll be on the bench.
Wilson's going to implode?
I think he's going to implode, and I think Justin Fields will play 13 or 14 games. And he will be my second big bounce.
There you go. Well, for me, and this is probably the biggest question mark of them all, but for me, my next boom quarterback is Anthony Richardson, because I believe Shane Steichen is going to do wonders with them. Now, he had 2 good games and 2, that didn't turn out so well games, but I think another year, he only played 4 games, and everybody agreed. The consensus was he needs to be out there playing, and we even talked about it on the show. Don't make the same mistake the Niners did with Trey Lance. Although, Depends on how Trey Lance performs, if he even plays another snap as a starter, which he probably will. Young quarterback, Purdy injury, or excuse me, Dak injury. Who knows? Dak might be gone next year. But besides the fact, Anthony Richardson needed snaps. So he became the week 1 starter. He played 4 games, got banged up a bunch, and then was out for the season after only 5 weeks, where he got injured in the 5th game. So with Shane Steichen, and I think this is where this boom quality comes from, Shane Steichen helped develop Justin Herbert as well as Jalen Hurts. Justin Herbert, we remember, game 1 was like, oh my God, he was going toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes, who was having an insane year because it's Patrick Mahomes. He was going toe-to-toe in week 1, which he didn't, or not week 1, but he wasn't even supposed to start in that game. We remember Tyrod Taylor had something with his lung, I think. His lung dropped or something, and all of a sudden you have to throw in Justin Herbert, and all of a sudden he's going, back and forth with Mahomes. Shane Steichen had a big part of that, as well as Jalen Hurts. MVP contention, Super Bowl appearance. If Jalen Hurts didn't fumble, we could argue he probably would have won that Super Bowl as well. So the fact that he's been with these top-tier quarterbacks in the NFL, I think a large consensus would be that both Herbert and Hurts, when healthy, which last year Hurts, Justin Herbert just overall, and also ended up getting hurt. But healthy, I think everyone agrees they're probably top 10 quarterbacks. And I'm not saying Anthony Richardson goes from playing 4 games to being a top 10 quarterback, but going from super raw to pretty developed, and as long as he can stay healthy, use his legs, use his arm. He needs more reps, obviously, but you give him the reps under Shane Steichen, who we saw what the Eagles' offense looked like during their collapse. It was ugly. Very, very ugly. They fired their OC. They're on another OC this year. So I think if Shane Steichen does what he's been doing with these types of quarterbacks, developing them to a level where you're playing other way above and shocking people, way above expectations and shocking people, or having you play at an MVP level and making Super Bowls, I think Anthony Richardson might do a very, very good job in 2024 with the Indianapolis Colts, once again, barring any injuries. So you're number 3, if you even have a number 3.
I have a number 3.
I got 2 more. So
I think I went from biggest bounce to next biggest bounce to smallest bounce now.
Sure. Yeah, right.
And my third quarterback pick, who played 13 games, had a decent season, but not up to his standards, would be Justin Herbert.
Okay.
And, he played 13 games, and that's the reason probably he had 3,100 yards passing. I think he'll go over 4,000 yards passing next year, and that will be his big bounce.
Okay.
But the question mark there, of course, is the wide receiver core. They lost Keenan Allen, who had 108 receptions for 1,243 yards and 7 touchdowns last year. Losing that guy is not going to help him out much. They lost Mike Williams, too, but Mike Williams was hurt most of the year. They replaced Keenan Allen with a rookie now, Lab McConkey, who was their second-round pick. They also had 2 seventh-round picks, Cornelius Johnson and Brendan Rice. Who knows how well they'll do. Then their most experienced receiver is Joshua Palmer, who I'm not sure many people have heard much about. He's been there since 21. And Quentin Johnson, who had high hopes for, but was a big disappointment last year, dropping balls all over the place. Maybe he'll rebound. So it's going to be a little more of a challenge because the wide receiver core is probably not as strong. But I do think that Justin Herbert will get to 4,000 passing yards.
I think that should be a given because of the amount of expectations we have on Herbert. And besides, your head coach isn't Brandon Staley. It's now Jim Harbaugh, who wins everywhere he goes. My number 2, or number 3, but second to last for me, is Jordan Love. Now, Jordan Love statistically, which goes a little bit against
The bounce.
Your bounce theory, or whatever you want to call it, bounce criteria. It goes against that because he had 4,159 yards, 32 touchdowns, and 11 picks. Where I think the boom goes, where the growth comes from, is you had the youngest team in the NFL. Another year with that system, another year of growth can only really benefit you unless someone gets hurt, unless a key piece gets hurt, which, in fact, last season, we saw that Christian Watson was out for about half the season, where he was averaging 15 yards per reception across, his career thus far. Guess what? You add him to a Jordan Love aerial assault, which already was really, really good. I'm going to bring up both these two quarterbacks, and if you don't mind, I want to do my other quarterback as well because I think they go hand in hand. It's C.J. Stroud.
Out of quarterback.
You're out of quarterback, so I'll wrap it up.
Pick 3.
Right. So my last two is Jordan Love and C.J. Stroud. Both those quarterbacks had 4,000 yards, but I think these quarterbacks are going to go from. Obviously Jordan Love wasn't eligible for Rookie of the Year, but I think he would have definitely been in contention for
You
Rookie
think
of the Year.
C.J. Stroud's going to have a better passing rating than 100?
Absolutely, and not only
better
that,
than 100?
No, what I'm saying about C.J. Stroud's boom potential is he's going from offensive Rookie of the Year, and we talked about this midway through the season, but because he was a rookie, can't really gain much ground. C.J. Stroud is going to be in the MVP conversation for a large part of the season. Now, will he win it? Probably not. Just because you have Mahomes, Herbert, Allen, Lamar Jackson, you have so many great quarterbacks. But will he be in contention because he plays so well? Absolutely. And not only that, he's the youngest quarterback to win a playoff game in NFL history. He threw for the most passing yards in a game by a rookie in NFL history, 470. He threw the most passes without an interception to start an NFL career, 191 attempts without a single interception.
Very good.
Efficiency-wise, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. The big problem and where C.J. Stroud needs to grow is when he's pressured, as all rookies do, though. That's the big thing. All rookie quarterbacks, when there's 350-pound, 6'7" guys charging at you, you're going to be a little scared to get knocked down by them that early in your career. But once you have more trust in your offensive line, another year in the system, you develop your football IQ, at least your NFL IQ, I should say, and you get more comfortable playing at that speed around these types of guys. And maybe if you have a bad offensive line, Sam Howell, Bryce Young, you're already used to your condition to getting hit by those types of players. Because guess what? When he was clean, he had 20 touchdowns, he had a 69% completion percentage, and 9.2 yards per attempt. When he was pressured, it plummets. 3 touchdowns, 52% completion percentage, and 6 yards an attempt. So he's definitely not the same quarterback when he's pressured. And I think the big thing to say about C.J. Stroud is his wins. While, yes, we commend him for 10 wins, I think if you look a little bit deeper, the quarterbacks the Texans defeated were Kenny Pickett, Will Levis twice, Derek Carr, Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson, Trevor Lawrence, Gardner Minshew, Baker Mayfield, and Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow, and probably, you could, I guess, Trevor Lawrence maybe. Joe Burrow and Trevor Lawrence. I don't know how people feel about Russell Wilson. If you want to throw him there, by all means do it. But he didn't exactly beat some of the top-tier quarterbacks in the NFL last year. This season, he has an opportunity to do that because his schedule is the 26th easiest in the NFL. So he's going to be playing against these top-tier teams. But the good thing about what the Texans have done recently is you traded for Stephon Diggs. You got Joe Mixon. You extended Dalton Schultz, your tight end. You re-signed Nico Collins through 2026. Tank Dell, another year in that system, and he's healthy again. I think really the Texans are going to be incredible. When it comes to Jordan Love, like I said, another year in the system. Christian Watson, I'm sure, will be back to full health. The numbers-wise, I don't know. But I think both of these quarterbacks, and the reason why I sort of kept them together is both these quarterbacks, if they play, and we bring up the last 10 games of Jordan Love last season, that's where you could be like, okay, if he has that type of performance again, where he starts off with those 10 games, and I think if C.J. Stroud does what C.J. Stroud normally does, and this was his rookie year. For instance, the 96-yard comeback with 40 seconds left against the Buccaneers. Like, he has that type of capability.
Yeah,
Jordan Love against the 49ers in the rain, once again, in my opinion, outplayed Brock Purdy and had an opportunity to go to the NFC Championship game. If you have those types of quarterbacks playing at that level throughout the entire season, both these quarterbacks, are staying on everybody's top 10 list. I think C.J. Stroud could break top 5, which on Friday we'll see where he is in my top 10 quarterbacks. But also, they would be in MVP conversations. Maybe not lead it, but be in serious talks and serious consideration to get probably the NFL's most coveted trophy, besides, obviously, the Super Bowl. Although NFC, AFC championship games, but I think personal accomplishment it is.
I would say those two quarterbacks on my criteria wouldn't qualify
They would not
because
qualify.
they aren't going to. They're going to be hard to bounce off the stats that they had in 23.
With
A lot.
5,000 yards.
Although Jordan Love, if he could start the season the way he played in the second half and play the whole season that consistently, then maybe he could bounce quite a bit off some of his stats. But C.J. Stroud, not so sure. He had a really good season, 100 QBR rating. Wow. It's going to be hard to beat that.
Absolutely.
So we'll see. I can't wait. We've made a lot of predictions already, but the season's a long way off.
Right.
And we have to keep track of what we made predictions on here to see how we do.
Well,
and I do think Bryce Young will win the bounce criteria.
Well, when the bar is set that low where it's like you probably busted on this quarterback.
Their offense is going to be better. It's going to have to be
expect
better.
it.
You expect it to be better. He got sacked 62 times.
Well,
that's got to rattle you, man.
The Panthers thought he was far above the best
62
quarterback.
times. That's got to rattle you.
Well, first of all, the Panthers thought that they were drafting, a bona fide number 1 overall quarterback in Bryce Young. That's what they thought. And what did we see? We saw just pitiful quarterback play, which albeit your number 1 receiver was 33-year-old Adam Thielen. Not exactly the best receiver to start your career with when it comes to developing you when your wide receiver is 1 foot into retirement because he's 33 and plays wide receiver.
Bryce Young got sacked an average of 4 times every game all season.
Hey.
Actually, he played 16 games, so it's a little higher than that. He didn't play the 17. He was out 1 game because he got hurt. But that's a lot of time. That's got to rattle you a little bit, particularly when you're a rookie. He's going to learn from that. The offensive line's going to be better. He's going to have a decent year. You wait and see.
The one thing that we didn't do is add rookies here. Because technically on your criteria, you need to do better than college.
What?
We didn't do any rookie quarterbacks on our list.
It can't be on my criteria.
Right, based
you had
on
to
your
play
criteria.
13 games at least in 2023 in order to qualify.
Well, then you would have to go off college technically, but then it's not the NFL.
I wouldn't go back. I wouldn't give a rookie an opportunity. They never played in the NFL.
Then how about this? Screw your criteria for this conversation. If we were to throw it out, which rookie? And we had this conversation before, so I want to see if our answers hold up. I have who we talked about. Now that we're seeing them in practice and hearing reports about them, who is the biggest boom potential?
Jalen Daniels.
Jayden Daniels
is my pick for that.
I'm going Caleb Williams. I think with the amount of moves they made, I think the amount of pressure being thrown on Williams to be their franchise guy, and he had a couple struggles early on, but he's a rookie quarterback, so he's allowed to do that. But he's stepped up to the task, large part in practice. Now the question is, when he gets to the NFL in a game, how will he look? I mean, think about this. I just thought about this now. We can go back in the tape. C.J. Stroud in his first preseason game was against the Patriots. He looked horrible.
Yeah.
And he turns out to be one of the best quarterbacks, even though he's a rookie in the NFL.
Play about 5 plays. So
right, but in those 5 plays, he looked lost. And then lo and behold, we're out here, and let's bring up the numbers one more time. 4,100 yards, 23 touchdowns, 5 picks, 100 passer rating. So, yes, preseason doesn't mean everything. But, first glances can be deceiving. So, maybe some of these quarterbacks will look horrible in preseason. Some might look horrible in training camp. But who knows? You're picking Jayden Daniels, which... Washington, you talk about offensive line and Bryce Young.
He's going to be a scrambler. He's going to make the plays.
He's like 185 pounds.
There's going to be a lot of broken plays, and he's going to make something out of a broken play.
He would have to. But you're telling me you're going to throw a 185-pound quarterback into the lion's den for him to run around and scramble like a headless chicken because his offensive line is horrible? Sam Howell had 65 sacks last season. Beats your guy, Bryce Young.
Well,
do you think Jayden Daniels is going to survive there?
Is the head and shoulders athlete over Sam Howell. He's a lot more mobile. He's going to be able to get outside the pocket.
Okay. So
make something out of nothing. He's going to be able to run the ball some. Much better. I see him more like a Lamar Jackson type quarterback.
Well, that reminds me of Justin Fields, not this past season, but the season before, where he ran for 1,100 yards, and they went like 3-14. That might be what the Washington Commanders look like. They were 3-12. Sorry, he went 3-12. He had 60% completion percentage, 2,214 passing yards, 17 touchdowns, 11 picks, a passer rating of 85.2, a QBR of 56.3, which is actually above average. He had MVP votes as well, which is interesting to say, at least at a 3-12 record. But yeah, 1,100 yards and getting sacked. He was sacked a total of 55 times and led the league. That's probably what Jaden Daniels is going to look like. So 3-12 record. Well, let's just expand that. Let's say he goes 4-13. Let's give him an extra win. 4-13, 60% completion percentage, 2,300 yards, 17 touchdowns, 11 picks, and runs for 1,200 yards. We'll be exact. Let's say 1,100 yards. That's kind of what you're saying. Bad offensive line, run around a bunch, make passes when he has to. So
that's what Lamar did in his
that's what Justin Fields did in 2022.
Fields, okay.
So that's probably what he's going to look like. So Commanders are going to go 4-13.
Maybe.
All right, that wraps up today's episode of the Harvey Hour. We thank you for the constant support as always, and once again, we apologize for not being live for the past, I think, 3 shows. Wi-Fi technical difficulties. Luckily, they're fixed. 0 drop frames after dropping basically 2/3 for the past 3 shows. So that's always good.
We made it up with an hour and 40-minute show. So
hour 20 minutes.
Hour and 20. Yeah.
But yeah, for this episode of the Harvey Hour, my name's Nathan Harvey. That's my dad, Stephen Harvey. We have been the hosts of the Harvey Hour. You can catch us Friday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern. I'll be doing my top 10 quarterbacks right here on YouTube.
My grandpa.
Traveling can be a nightmare. Why? You can't watch your favorite shows abroad. You can't trust public Wi-Fi spots anymore. And when you return, roaming bills kill your vibe. Unless you get a NordVPN and Saley deal. NordVPN will increase your privacy online. And Saley, a global eSIM data app, will save you from those unexpected roaming charges. Grab the 2-year NordVPN deal with 76% off and get up to 20 gigabytes